Please give rise to bodhicitta once more and listen with bodhicitta. The teaching we're looking at is the torch lighting the way to freedom, complete instructions on the preliminary practices of satsang Ngondro Nyingtik. Please everyone listen well, be completely silent during the teaching sessions. Creates a lot of disturbance if people get up during the teachings or talk. Disturbs everyone. If you want to talk, then go outside. Otherwise, you're just creating obstacles for everyone else. Okay. So we covered who is the author of this text, the 5 branches. In the previous session of 1.5 hours, well, about half an hour of that session went on the mandala offering and so on. So for an hour, we talked about Dushin Rinpoche's life story and so on. So from tomorrow onwards, we will be sticking to the text itself, the text proper. We'll be talking more about Dushin Rinpoche's life story and so on. And for those of you who are interested to learn more about Kyabje Rinpoche's life story and so on, you can read his various biographies. So please keep all of that in mind. So this text, A Torch Lighting the Way to Freedom, complete instructions on the preliminary practice of the profound and secret heart essence of the Dakini. Well, we have 3 titles here actually, in the Tibetan at least, meaning the title is written in 3 different scripts: Lensa, Sanskrit, and Tibetan. Even if I were to read and go through the Sanskrit version of the title, then well, I'd only be able to give an approximation of the meaning. There are no doubt many Sanskrit scholars here who can give a much more precise explanation. So, well, the title in English translation is in a different order than the Tibetan, but still, let's give it a go. So Rinpoche is comparing the Sanskrit version of the title to the Tibetan. So Gambhira Guya means profound secret. Satsang Dakini is Ngondro, skygoer. Samantaka Saya. There are different ways to pronounce Sanskrit, so I'm not too sure about this one. Nevertheless, so the previous word, Kantarjisa, this means the essence, and Mantaka, the Ngondro preliminaries. We have Saya, Nayatiko, Lamni, must relate to the path to liberation. Patijipa means the lamp or torch or lamp, lighting the way. Nama Bizahara is a phrase that closes the title. Literally, we could translate it as "herein lies" or "is entitled." So when I was studying at Dzogchen when I was younger, Dzogchen Shedra, the great opportunities there to study all of the secular sciences of grammar, linguistics, astrology and so on. And I had a bit of opportunity to study Sanskrit and linguistics there, but maybe it was laziness or I don't know, but I only studied Sanskrit a little bit, didn't go into detail with that. So anyway, that's a rough approximation of how the Sanskrit relates to the Tibetan. So now let's look at the Tibetan title itself and go through each word of this syllable by syllable. So again, the Tibetan, I'll follow the Tibetan word order. So it starts with profound secret, profound and secret. So profound refers to profound emptiness. We often have profound and vast together. Profound emptiness, vast, paths and stages. Secret refers to the teachings of secret Vajrayana, and specifically the three inner tantras. The three inner tantras, which are the secret of all secrets, the greatest mystery, these secret teachings of Vajrayana. And from among these three inner tantras, the third and highest, that of Ati Yoga, the great perfection, is comprised of three further cycles, sections we could say, space section, mind section, space section, and pith instruction section. And the most profound of these is the pith instruction section. So profound here refers to, contains all of those meanings. The word secret, as explained in Guyogaba Tantra, has also various meanings. Secrecy in terms of concealment and secrecy in terms of a natural secrecy. Concealed secrecy refers to the fact that the teachings should be intentionally concealed. Tantric teachings should be intentionally concealed from those who are not appropriate vessels for them, for their own sake. The word secret can also refer to swiftness, though, to the swiftness of the secret tantric path. So the word secret here, or the word sangha, which is translated as secret, holds all of these various meanings. In any case, the most important thing is that when you see these two adjectives here, profound and secret, it's important that you understand that, okay, profound and secret indicates that these teachings are teachings of the great perfection, the profound and secret great perfection. Then we have Ngondro, the next word, Dakini. Tracton Tujun Lingpa had four main cycles of treasure teachings: Chuni Namka Zu, Dana Yeshe Jawa, Gomba Longdo, and Ngondro Nyingtik. From among these four, Ngondro Nyingtik is one of them, and this Ngondro is the Ngondro of Ngondro Nyingtik, that treasure cycle. When we say Ngondro Dakini, many people just think of a woman, a girl. Now, when we say Guru Rinpoche is surrounded by many dakinis, we think of Guru Rinpoche is surrounded by a lot of women. But that's probably not what's meant by dakini, actually. It's not the real meaning of dakini. We'll go into this more in detail during refuge, when we'll look at the three roots, Guru, Yidam, and dakini. To embody all objects of refuge, Guru means the Gurus, Lamas. Yidam refers to the Buddhas, the enlightened ones, and Ngondro, the Sangha. Sorry, let's go through this again. So we can relate we can relate the three roots to the three jewels and the three kayas. In short, when taking refuge in the Vajrayana context, we take refuge in the three roots of Guru, Yidam, and Dakini. And Dakini relate to or attain to the Sangha from among the three jewels. So this is to say that Dakini does not just refer to women. Dakini, or let's use the Tibetan word Ngondro. Ka means space or sky, and Dro means to go, to travel. It's said in the land of Uddiyana that all the women in the land of Uddiyana could travel through the sky, could fly, and therefore they were called Ngondro, skygoers. However, generally, or really, the word Ngondro actually has a very profound meaning, as described in the Tantras and Tantric scriptures. As Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche explained, Ngondro means sky goer. And in a poetic context or some linguistic context, Ngondro can just mean a bird, someone who flies in the sky. However, Dilku Khyentse Rinpoche explains it in a deeper, more essential meaning. Ka meaning the natural state, Dro meaning to arrive at realization. So one who has realized the natural state, one has realized the natural state is a Ngondro, a Dakini, a sky goer. So this is how Dilku Khyentse Rinpoche explains it, and indeed this is how it is explained in the scriptures. You can look, for instance, in the explanation of the 7-line prayer. 7-line prayer, a commentary by Mipham Rinpoche. It's not so long, so not so difficult to read through that text and see how Mipham Rinpoche explains the word Dakini. Nevertheless, I thought Dilku Khyentse Rinpoche's explanation, sky, Ka, referring to Dhammakaya, the Dhammadhatu, and Dro, go, referring to having realized the Dhammakaya, realized Dhammadhatu. So this succinct, profound definition of Dakini perhaps arose from the realization, the wisdom mind of Dilku Khyentse Rinpoche, a very special, succinct yet profound explanation of the word Dakini. Then we have the next word, Nyingtik, which means heart essence. So the very heart essence, quintessence of the teachings. Then we have the word Ngondro, which means preliminaries, preliminary practices. So preliminaries in the sense of the foundation, the basis, like the foundation of a house. Before you reach the main part, you need to practice the preliminaries. Like without the foundation of a house, it doesn't make sense to start building walls and so on. So to try to launch into the main practice of the great perfection, practicing Chekchu, Togel, doing ritual practice, taking up a bell and Dhammaru and so on, without first of all practicing the preliminaries and training in those, well, it is an incorrect approach, incorrect, confused approach, and that just does not work. But this is what a lot of people are doing these days, especially in this internet age, where people just learn things off the computer and their phone. So it is indispensable that we practice the preliminaries. For instance, if you're practicing Truma, then first of all you need to practice the Ngondro in full, and then receive the Truma instructions, Chuchi, and then proceed accordingly, step by step. You can't just pick up the Chö, Dhammaru and Bell and launch into the main practice of Truma, as so many people are doing these days. That is not the way to proceed. It's just like a game then, and you see people doing this all over the place, not just with the practice of Chu, but also with other ritual practice, with the practice of debate, and so on, all aspects of Dharma. It's being engaged in these days in many places just like a child's game. As Sojin Sherajapa said in his 80 words of advice, if you engage in meditation without understanding, if you engage in practice without understanding, you're just like a parrot reciting mantras. No transformation will take place. So the preliminaries are vital for practice, and the next word of the title is instructions, complete instructions. So Chi-rim literally means the gradual instructions, translated in English as complete instructions, complete in the sense of covering all the aspects of the preliminaries from beginning to end, so refuge, bodhicitta, mandala, vajrasattva, mandala, then guru yoga. Then the title proper, torch, lighting the way to freedom. So torch, we could also say a lamp, a torch, a headlight that shows us the way, that lights up the path to liberation. So that is the title. In brief, that is the title. In Namche Rigpa, one of the scriptures, it said, to paraphrase, that if you do not give names to things, the world, everyone will fall into confusion. Therefore, Buddha, out of his compassion, gave names to things, gave names to the teachings. So if we don't give titles to teachings, then we simply will not know how to refer to them, how to communicate them. So beings of highest capacity, it said, just by reading the title of a text, they can infer the entire meaning of the text. Those of middling capacity can at least get an idea of the content, and those of lesser capacity will at least know where to find the text and to what it pertains. So that is the reason why we give titles to texts, and indeed why we give names to things. So now we begin the preamble. I'm supposed to hear is the complete instruction on the preliminary practice of the profound and secret hard essence of the Dakini, explained in a way that is easy to apply, and entitled The Torch of Perfect Explanation. So perfect explanation refers to an explanation that is well composed, that is clear, that lights the way to freedom, explains the path to liberation perfectly, clearly. Therefore, it is said to be a perfect explanation. So the content, the subject matter itself, the way to freedom is perfect, and the explanation, the words explaining this way to freedom themselves are perfect. Therefore, this is described as a perfect explanation. Now we come to the opening homage. The general homage and a more specific homage. The general homage begins, respectfully I submit obedience to the glorious teacher, inseparable from the lake-born diamond bearer, embodies the ocean-like all-encompassing objects of refuge. All-encompassing, ocean-like, refers to the boundless infinite quality of the objects of refuge. Ocean-like refers to all of the objects of refuge in all 10 directions. The glorious teacher, Jujun Rinpoche's own root guru, Guru Mingyur Wangpo, who is inseparable from the late-born diamond bearer. This is an epithet for Guru Rinpoche. Diamond bearer, or more commonly we could say Vajra holder, Vajradhara, refers to the Buddha, basically, the perfect Buddha. Some people say this term, diamond bearer or Vajradhara, is the Kagyu Buddha, whereas Samantabhadra is the Nyingma Buddha, because of the way the terminology is used in these different traditions, but it's probably not quite like that. It's not quite like that. If you look in the 7 treasuries and Ningtik Yapshi and so on, there's teachings of Longchenpa. Vajradhara and Samantabhadra, these two terms are used synonymously. Nevertheless, when you go into the two terms, their etymologies and so on, then there is a slight difference between the two terms. Dhammakaya, Samantabhadra. We can divide the Dhammakaya into 3, Dhammakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Namanakaya. So the Dhammakaya is Samantabhadra, Dhammakaya Sambhogakaya is Vajradhara, and Dhammakaya Namanakaya is Amatayas. You can make that kind of division. Likewise with the Sambhogakaya, you can make the threefold division. So, yeah, you can make a similar threefold division with Sambhogakaya and Namanakaya. When we make these more precise, detailed divisions, then we can distinguish between the Dhammakaya Samantabhadra and Dhammakaya Samantabhadra, Dhammakaya Sambhogakaya Vajradhara. Nevertheless, just say that Samantabhadra is a Nyingma Buddha, Vajradhara is a Kagyu Buddha, Shakyamuni is a Geluk Buddha. It's probably not quite right or quite okay. At least that's my perspective. So diamond bearer, Vajradhara, refers to the Buddha. It's an epithet for Buddha. Who is paying this homage? It is Kyabje Jujun Rinpoche who is paying homage. To whom? To his glorious root guru, who is inseparable from the late-born diamond bearer, Guru Rinpoche. There are many different types of paying homage. We could also translate Chaksal, paying homage as prostration, paying worship. So, in any case, here, first of all, the author Kyabje Gyugyul Rinpoche is paying homage to his root guru, Gyurme Ngondro Wangpo. Likewise, in the scriptures like Namche Rigpa Rinpoche quoted a verse that explains the necessity and purpose of opening a text with paying homage, how it inspires one in faith and so on. But we won't go into those details. The homage continues. Gyurme Ngondro Wangpo was a Lama, a holder of all of the Nyingma teachings of Karma and Tema, oral and treasure teachings, one of the most precious, important. Lineage holders. It's to him that Kyabje Gyugyul Rinpoche is paying homage. Then the homage continues, never moving from emptiness, the expanse of peace. The uncategorized emptiness, we could say. Uncategorized ultimate emptiness. Great ultimate emptiness, whose natural radiance, natural expression is compassion. Emptiness, which is naturally the inseparability of bliss and emptiness. So this state of ultimate emptiness is described in the Madhyamaka text, for instance, as being free of the 4 extremes, 3 of the 8 extremes, and so on. This expanse of peace, expanse, or we could say sphere, refers to primordial wisdom. It refers to Dharma Dhatu, self-arisen wisdom, which is the Dharma Dhatu, which is the source of all of the 5 kayas and 5 wisdoms, as Longchenpa explains in his text. So when we say Dharma Dhatu, we're not talking about a blank, inert emptiness, but rather the Dharma Dhatu basic space of phenomena, the very source of the kayas and wisdoms, self-arisen, naturally present primordial wisdom. So the natural expression of this state of emptiness is compassion, natural compassion, the illusory display of compassion. Illusory display of compassion, so not a concrete corporeal display of compassion like bodies of flesh and blood. We shouldn't misunderstand it like that, but rather the illusory wisdom display of compassion that naturally arises out of emptiness, the basic space. And these manifestations appear solely for the benefit of beings, purely for the benefit of beings, out of compassion for sentient beings. Rinpoche is quoting various lines from the introduction to the Middle Way, the root verses of the Middle Way, the inexpressible confession, Yeshe Kunjo, and so on, which all speak to this same point. So, never moving from emptiness, the expanse of peace, compassionately he takes existence through illusory manifestations. Like in Frongsa Mahabandita's Entering the Way of the Great Vehicle, he says, Nimanaka is the emanation body. Nimanaka is the emanation body, which is without any identity, without any true existence, any substance. Namanakaya is an illusory manifestation. So these days we talk about chukus, Namanakaya's emanations. We're busy doing so many different things. And it's not just the tukus, it's also the kempus and so on. We're merely a semblance of tukus and so on. But I think the point Rinpoche is highlighting here is that, as Longsa Mahapandit says in his text, what Namanakaya or tuku really means is illusory manifestation that lacks any real identity or real existence. And Rinpoche's root gurus would often give great scoldings to all of the tukus, the students who were tukus. I didn't get any specific direct scoldings, even though I had the name of a tuku. But that was how Kimbo Daza Rinpoche, or maybe Kimbo Chuki Rinpoche, one of Rinpoche's root gurus, he would always lay into his students who had the name tuku or geshe or a title. So when we say tuku or Namanakaya, we're talking about an illusory manifestation of compassion. That's what Namanakaya really means. To the all-pervading Lord, the gracious teacher, union diamond holder Vajradhara, who does not dwell in extremes, I submit obedience. Union here means non-dual. Many types of non-duality or union. Diamond or Vajra means non-dual, without divisions. It also means invincible, indestructible, indivisible. It has typically seven layers of meaning. Diamond holder means to possess or to have those diamond qualities. So maybe I'm getting too fast now, and I need to slow down. So I submit obedience, I pay homage to the chief of the mandala. When we talk about the Lord of the family, Buddha family, we're talking about to Vajrasattva, who is the sovereign of the entire mandala of peaceful and wrathful deities. Sovereign Vajrasattva, who is none other than one's own root guru. To the gracious teacher, so we're jumping up to the previous line now. Gracious means kind, one endowed with great kindness, the kindness of bestowing empowerment, is transmissions and instructions, pith instructions. So this threefold kindness: first of all, bestowing empowerment upon one; secondly, transmission; thirdly, pith instruction. The gracious teacher who shows us this threefold kindness. Lama means guru in Sanskrit, which has the connotation of heaviness, heavy with qualities. And obeisance or homage, we could also translate this as prostration, refers to prostration or obeisance paid by means of body, speech and mind. So again, who is making this homage or obeisance? It is Kyabje Dushu Rinpoche. To whom? To his root guru. So in this way, the author, Kyabje Dushu Rinpoche, is beginning the text with his act of homage by paying obeisance to his gurus. And there are specific reasons why authors do this, why Buddhist texts begin with an opening homage. One of them being to ensure that the composition is not interrupted by obstacles, that the composition actually can be completed. Now the next verse of homage. As they wander in the gloom of utter ignorance and 100 evils, travelers in cyclic existence, while yearning for liberation, head directly for the dreadful abyss of the lower realms, that they may swiftly and easily find comfort in the sublime gloom of nirvana, and so on. So here, these verses are describing the reason, the purpose for Jujun Rinpoche's composition of this text, why he is composing this text. And he's supplicating his gurus that they may bestow their blessings so that his activity will be meaningful and succeed. So sentient beings wander in the gloom of utter ignorance. Ignorance is the root of all negativity. And we talk about two types of ignorance: innate ignorance and imputed ignorance. Furthermore, in Jigme Rinpoche's commentary, Yunten Khenpo Yunga's commentary, these two types of ignorance are further subdivided into three. And nevertheless, or in short, these two types of ignorance, innate and imputed ignorance, are the very root and source of samsara. And as the introduction to Middle Way by Chandrakirti says, first of all we conceive of I and mine, and then others and theirs, and thus the water wheel of samsara begins. To those with compassion for wandering beings, I pay homage. So as they wander, as all sentient beings wander in the gloom of utter ignorance, gloom, the darkness. Gloom here means deep, dense darkness, great, all-encompassing darkness of utter ignorance. And 100 evils, the evils that arise from ignorance. Travelers in cyclic existence, while they're yearning for liberation, head directly for the dreadful abyss of the lower realms. So this means that even if we give rise to the wish to pursue liberation and to practice the Dharma to that end, nevertheless, because of our ignorance, because of our negative habits, even though we're attempting to practice Dharma, we unwillingly, unwittingly end up just engaging in more and more negative actions and creating the causes for rebirth in the lower realms. Of course, those who have no interest in the Dharma, well, what to do about them? As Buddha Shakyamuni said to Ananda, as Buddha Shakyamuni said to his disciples, I will show you the path to liberation, but know that liberation depends on you alone. So I can show you the path, but traversing the path depends on you. So for those who have interest in liberation, who want to pursue liberation, then we need to follow that path, the path to liberation. Without that, without an address, so to speak, then how will we ever arrive there? And we might have the idea to go somewhere, but without the actual address, the specific location, we will never find it. So we need to know where we are going, and we need to know how to get there, the destination and the path. So for those seeking liberation, for those pursuing liberation, I here will lay out the path to liberation. I will show them how to arrive at that state. So for those seeking liberation, who wish for liberation, or as the translation says, yearning for liberation, that they may swiftly and easily find comfort in the sublime gloom of nirvana, of liberation. I shall here light a jeweled lamp of perfect explanation to clearly illuminate that excellent path. So a path that can be traversed swiftly, easily, comfortably, without too much difficulty, just like a highway, you know, a highway that gets you to your destination really fast and that's easy to drive on. The sublime grove of Nirvana, Rinpoche quoted some lines of scripture which explain how the state of nirvana, of liberation from samsara, is a state of peace, of comfort, of leisure, so to speak, free of all anguish and angst. So, sublime grove is used as an example here to explain the peace and ease, the peace and bliss of the state of nirvana. So, by following the path of Vajrayana, the swift path of Vajrayana, then one really can swiftly and easily reach this sublime grove of nirvana. If, on the other hand, one follows the sutra path of the vehicle of characteristics, then one has to endure hardships and gather merit and so on for 3 countless eons at least before reaching the result. So for those seeking liberation, seeking this state, and to clearly illuminate the excellent path of the profound meaning, I shall give this explanation. Yesterday there was an earthquake right in the morning. I was on the 1st floor and live on the 1st floor, and the building really swayed a lot. If the foundation of the house is quite stable, then you don't need to worry too much, right? But if the foundation of a house is strong, then an earthquake will poses a lot of danger, right? And apparently quite a number of people died yesterday from the earthquake. But just as when an earthquake strikes, if you are in a well-built house, you're not in much danger, but if you're in a poorly built house, you're in danger. The same goes with practice. If you have a solid foundation to your practice, meaning you have a solid foundation of the preliminaries, then your path and progress will be swift and stable. However, if not, if you lack this foundation of the preliminaries, then your progress will not be stable. So this is the excellent path of the preliminaries that will be explained here. If you establish a sound foundation of the preliminaries, then your practice of the main part of the great perfection of luminosity will flourish, will come to fruit, but only with the sound foundation of the preliminaries. There are so many instructions, pith instructions and commentaries in all of the traditions, including the Nyingma tradition. Rinpoche mentioned many, but from among these we have the Words of a Perfect Teacher by Patrul Rinpoche, and the benefit of that teaching is really incomparable. It has touched the hearts of so many people across all traditions, Buddhist traditions, and it really is incomparable in terms of its influence and benefit. Why? Because of the powerful and pure aspirations of the author, Patrul Rinpoche, who was a direct emanation of Bodhisattva Shantideva himself. So my teacher, Khenpo Dazo Rinpoche, would speak about this. So there are many Khenpos and Lamas here, many of whom have a lot of faith and concern for the Tersa Dujum Tersa teachings. But But I think Rinpoche is saying the most beneficial thing, one of the most beneficial things, is the teachings found in the words of my perfect teacher by Patrul Rinpoche. So those of you here who have faith in the Dujum Tersa teachings, faith in Kyabje Dujum Rinpoche, and wish to offer service to his teachings and tradition, then how to do that? Well, to engage in the 3 trainings of discipline, meditation, and wisdom, to engage in genuine teaching and study, explanation and study of the teachings, and put those into practice. That is the way, the best way to pay service to Dujum Rinpoche and his teachings. So here, to return to the homage, Dujum Rinpoche says, I shall here light a jeweled lamp of perfect explanation, a jeweled lamp that illuminates the darkness like a torch. In the words of my perfect teacher, there's a story about an ancient king who had a palace that was so full of natural gems of all different colors, that was so radiant and luminous that the entire interior of the palace was just always lit up night and day. Of course, there was no electricity, there were no candles, but it was the natural light of the jewels that created the light. So this is the example that's being used here, a jeweled lamp. Natural gems that are naturally radiant. In the past, a few years back, I stayed in retreat for 1 year, focused on reading the Kangyur, the words of the Buddha, all 100 and more than 100 volumes of those texts, spending several hours each morning and each evening in formal sessions, reading through each page of the Kangyur slowly and attentively. And in the Kangyur then you find this and other stories mentioning these types of natural radiant gems. So Dujum Rinpoche here is saying, I will light this jeweled lamp, I will set it alight, set it ablaze. Like I'm going to switch it on. Like if it's an electric light, then I'm going to switch it on, he's saying. In terms of a candle, then I'm going to light it. And may this composition, may this act be completed. It's quite hot, isn't it? Yeah. So may this commentary on the Ngondro that I have begun, may it be completed and fulfilled, and may all connections it makes with beings be meaningful. May it act as a seed for all beings to be reborn in Zangdokpari, the glorious copper-colored mountain. May all those who encounter this teaching form a connection with it, receive this teaching and put it into practice. May that be at the least a seed for their rebirth in Zangdokpari. So those who can receive this teaching and actually put it into practice and make progress and even reach enlightenment in this life, how wonderful! And even those who aren't able to do that, just by receiving this teaching, may it act as a seed that will ripen in the future, leading beings to take rebirth in the pure realms. And may it benefit infinite beings, infinite meaning beyond number, beyond measure. There is no limit to the number of sentient beings wherever space pervades. Beings pervade wherever beings pervade, karma and afflictions pervade wherever karma and afflictions pervade, suffering pervades. To all of those sentient beings, infinite sentient beings, I give rise to compassion. You find this, Rinpoche just quoted some lines of prose from the words of my perfect teacher, which say exactly this. To all of these infinite sentient beings, I give rise to compassion. Infinite beings, bestow your kindness that I may complete what I have begun in this way. So with these lines, Jujuru Rinpoche is paying homage and supplicating Guru Rinpoche that his commentary may be completed for the benefit of infinite beings. So now we've covered the title, the opening homage, and also the pledge to compose. Fortunate beings, you who seek these full instructions on the preliminary practice of the profound and secret path. So fortunate beings, those who seek out the teachings, come to receive the teachings, like you here, people who have come not for me but for these precious teachings from very far, from America, Australia, Europe and elsewhere. There are a lot of people who I hear have come specifically for these teachings from very far away. Knowing the value of the teachings, the value of the lineage, the blessings of these teachings. For those of you, fortunate beings, who have sought these teachings out, on arriving you should clean the room and so on, erect a proper seat for the teacher such as a lion or jewel throne. So here we have wonderful preparation has been made. This marquee has been erected at great expense and effort. Seats have been arranged and so on. So it's saying here that one should prepare a clean and orderly place for the teaching to take place. So we should take this to heart. Do not throw rubbish around in the teaching place. And the volunteer. Don't make a mess, don't throw your rubbish around, put it in the bin. Help keep this place clean, help sweep and tidy, and keep the teaching venue clean. We can see here, right here on the page, this is actually taught in the Dharma text, right? The importance of keeping the teaching venue clean. And it said you should arrange a throne for the teacher. Here, a huge, very tall throne has been arranged for me. Which is a very tall throne has been arranged here. One of the reasons for having the teacher on a throne is also that everyone can see the teacher and hear them clearly. In any case, it's a way to express one's respect for the teaching. Arranging a throne and so on. So in the teachings, in all of the different teachings, it is taught that the students should prepare the teaching location, arrange a seat for the teacher and so on. But in the Prajnaparamita teachings, we see the Buddha himself, he actually says, I will arrange my own throne. We see Buddha say, I will arrange my own throne and arrange his own seat for the teaching as an expression of the value of the teachings that he is to give, that the teachings, profound teachings that he is going to share. So all of these things are actually a way to express and acknowledge the value of the teachings, the value of the Dhamma itself. So one should welcome the teacher, going before him or her with incense and music, and show every courtesy and respect. All those listening to the teaching, the students, should refrain from covering their heads, carrying weapons, wearing shoes. If you act in that way, sit with your head covered and so on, during teachings, then you will not acknowledge and appreciate the value of the teachings. This is taught in the Buddha himself instructed his students in this way. So one should take off one's shoes, take off one's hat, and so on, and pay respect to the teachings in this and other ways. Meaning to say, one should express one's respect and appreciation of the teachings through one's physical conduct. Actually, when you can tell how much someone knows about the Dhamma by the way they prostrate, by the way they conduct themselves. Someone who has received the teachings, like received the words of my perfect teacher, their understanding of the teachings will actually come through in even the small details of the way they join their palms together, the way they prostrate, the way they conduct themselves when they enter a teaching hall. Right? In the past, Patrul Rinpoche, there are stories of Patrul Rinpoche. So, Patrul Rinpoche in the past, there's an encounter between him and Nyosho Lungdo, who requested Patrul Rinpoche to show him how to prostrate, and that way of prostrating then is now famous and very well known. So these small details, how one prostrates, how one holds one mala, so not placing one's mala on the floor under one's feet, in letting it touch the ground and so on, not touching it with dirty hands. So regarding one's mala as well, one should treat it with respect. There are so many details about how to handle a mala, how to hold it, with which fingers, how to pass it through your fingers and so on. This and so many other details, and those who are learned and have studied the scriptures will be familiar with all of these points. So one should conduct oneself accordingly, respectfully, when receiving teachings, as is explained here, physically, verbally. Of course, if one doesn't know, doesn't yet know about these various points, then what to do? But that's the point of receiving teachings, isn't it? To gain knowledge and come to understand things that one doesn't yet understand. In the sutras, we find a story of how, so it's also taught that one should present an offering in request of teachings. Therefore, we have the tradition of making mandala offerings at the beginning of teachings, and there is great benefit and purpose for doing this. For instance, in the sutras, we find various stories of how students made offerings to Buddha Shakyamuni, and previous Buddhas in request of teachings. For instance, a king who offered or a student who offered some rice to Buddha in a request of teachings, and a few grains of rice fell on Buddha's head, on his neck, and one into his arm swell, and as a result of the merit accrued through that, this student was then reborn as a very powerful king with great merit. And there are this and so many other stories of the great benefit and merit accrued by making offerings to the Buddhas. Sorry, I missed that anecdote, but the point is, if you have wealth, then as a student of Dharma, you need to use that wealth to make offerings to the objects of refuge, and also to give in generosity to those in need. Otherwise, otherwise one is just deceiving oneself and not being honest, actually. That said, if you don't have wealth, then you can make offerings with your imagination. So, and there are lots of. The most important thing is one's motivation, one's mindset. So if you don't have wealth, it's not to say that if you don't have wealth you can't make offerings. You can make offerings through pure motivation and imagination. But if you do have wealth and you don't use it for offerings, then that is actually dishonest. That's insincere. As Longchenpa said in his instruction, make illusory wealth meaningful. There is no real meaning or substance to material wealth. It's just an illusion. But if you have that illusion, then make it meaningful by using it well, using it to make offerings and to help those in need. So there's a story how in past in Serta there was a lama very precious lama who was offered some very large, very, very valuable jewels. They'd be worth maybe a few $100,000 today. He was offered these jewels and then he thought, oh, I feel compassion. Sorry, I'm not following this story at all. As Longchenpa said, make the illusion of wealth meaningful. No matter how much wealth you have, it's fleeting, it's illusory. Like, you can look at Kathmandu Valley, all the wealth in Kathmandu Valley, it's not stable, it's not lasting. It's fleeting and transient, so if and when you have it, make sure you use it in a meaningful way. But it's also not the case that you need material wealth. There's this funny saying up in Humla, where Rimshi lives, something like, "My arm is long, but my arm is long, but my sleeves aren't long enough," or something. But anyway, the point is that to practice the Dharma, you do not need wealth. To think that you need wealth to practice the Dharma is a complete mistake. It's a complete delusion. Look at all the great masters of the past, masters like Longchenpa and so on and so forth. They did not have material wealth, but they practiced the Dharma perfectly. So there's no need to pursue material wealth. Certainly no need to pursue material wealth for the sake of Dharma. The most important thing is a pure motivation. If you offer great loads of wealth and jewels and so on, but without a pure motivation, there'll be no benefit to that. But if you just have a pure motivation and no wealth to offer, then there's great benefit in that. So the most important thing is one's motivation. That's the crucial thing when it comes to practice. But that said, if you do have material wealth and you are a practitioner, you need to make use of that wealth for the sake of Dharma, right? Otherwise, you are trapped in the snare of stinginess. And stinginess leads only to the lower realms, leads to rebirth as a hungry ghost. There are lots of stories about wealthy people taking rebirth as snakes or scorpions and so on, lingering around the location of their previous life's wealth and so on. So if you become ensnared in stinginess, in miserliness, then that is where you will end up. So, again, to reiterate, the point is that you don't need material wealth to practice the Dharma. Don't make the mistake of thinking you need money to practice Dharma. It's not the case. You need a pure motivation. And when, for instance, you can make offerings just by offering water, right? Offering water in your offering bowls, that doesn't cost any money. When offering water in water bowls, you should fill them just like you would fill a cup of tea. So not overflowing, but also not empty. So, and you should also arrange the bowls in a straight line and in a beautiful way. These are all crucial points about making offerings of water. And probably I need to slow down for the sake of the interpreters. Khenpo Gyaltsen put a note on my table saying, "Please speak slowly," but I keep forgetting and fall into my habit of speaking really fast. So, to return to the text, it says, so arrange offerings such as incense, flowers, rows of lamps, a gold or silver mandala, all beautifully set out and in the proper order. Welcome the teacher and show every courtesy and respect. So I've asked the students here to really not show too much kind of formal expressions of respect to me, because I don't warrant that kind of respect. But still the students don't listen. Nevertheless, when you have a really qualified, genuine teacher, then you should show them every courtesy and respect. meaning inviting them into the hall with incense and with ceremonial scarves and so on and so forth. Those listening to the teachings as well should refrain from covering their heads. They should not wear hats. There's no need to dress up for teachings. It's not good actually to dress up in finery for teachings. Whatever you wear on a daily basis in your normal life, just wear those same clothes, but make sure they're clean and worn properly. That is enough. That is good. It's not really good or appropriate to come to teachings all dressed up in fancy clothes. It's also not good to come in really dirty clothes, kind of acting as if you're a carefree, simple person. Dirty, grimy clothes and smelly feet and so on. You should be clean, washed, wearing clean clothes, but no need to be fancy and decked up in finery. This is important when receiving teachings, but these days, who knows how it goes? A lot of people are giving teachings and receiving teachings online by means of their phones or computer or whatever, and who knows what clothes they're wearing, right? If they're really adopting these points of conduct, maybe they're listening in their shorts with their legs up, sitting on the sofa, or even having a pee. And it says also that so one should avoid chatting and laughing, and mentally you should give up all attitudes that are influenced by the 8 ordinary concerns and the afflictive emotions. So this means some people might listen to teachings with a kind of skeptical mind, thinking, well, maybe I'm probably more learned than this teacher, I've done more study than them, I'm more knowledgeable than them, and so they listen with this kind of pride and conceit. Or maybe if they're a practitioner with long hair and dreadlocks, they think, oh, well, I've done more practice than this person, more years, I've done a 3-year retreat or many years of retreat, so therefore I'm more experienced than this teacher. Listening with that kind of pride and conceit is not helpful. You're not going to receive teachings, actually. The teachings will not enter you if you listen in that way, with such motivation. With the 8 ordinary concerns, hoping for praise and fame, gain and happiness, and fear of their opposites. So we should give up all 8 worldly concerns and afflictive emotions, all negative, confused motivations, and instead, so afflictive emotions such as finding fault in or looking down on the teacher and so on, instead sit up straight with hands folded together, so your spine straight. If you sit up straight, it's also very good for your health. Some Chinese traditional doctors say, masseuses and so on, say that actually if you sit up straight and keep your spine straight throughout the day, then you will actually avoid a lot of illnesses. If you slouch and have bad posture, then actually that contributes to a lot of illness. So, if you have a cold or something and then you see an acupressure, get acupressure, it can really cure your colds and cure your illness, right? So it's a bit like an engine, Part of the engine goes out of place or gets loose, and then everything gets disturbed. So likewise, when the spine or different parts of the body go out of place and get too loose or too tight or out of place in alignment, then that triggers a lot of imbalance in the body that then turns into illness. So there's a real, even in terms of medical terms, from the perspective of health, actually it's really important to keep one's spine straight. We saw some very famous Chinese doctors and like acupressure doctors and maybe osteopaths who treated me and some of my monks, very stepping on us and pressing us and realigning us. And they spoke about this, the importance of an correctly aligned spine. So to that end, it's important that we sit up straight, just as taught here in our text, with hands folded together. Cultivate great devotion and respect, keeping your mind concentrated and undistracted. You should realize that to encounter a teacher in sacred teaching like this is very difficult. So we should bring this to mind. Think, I'm so fortunate to encounter the teachings of Kyajit Rinpoche. These precious teachings, this is not something that easily comes about. This is a very rare and meaningful, precious opportunity. Recall that. Bring that to mind and then focus without getting distracted. Without getting distracted by anything else. Conduct yourself respectfully with care and cleanliness. So, respectfully with care and cleanliness, meaning sitting in an orderly, respectful way, not farting or burping and so on. Present whatever material offerings you can. Even if it's just 1 rupee or 5 rupees, whatever you can, if you offer what you can, out of respect for the teachings, you will accumulate great merit, especially when receiving empowerments. In the past, I wondered about the importance of making these material offerings when receiving empowerments. But then later on, when I came to study the Guyogapa Tantra, I saw that since instruction of making mandala offerings, the importance of making mandala offerings when receiving empowerments is taught right there in the tantras themselves. And then I thought how fortunate we are to belong to a tradition and a heritage that stems from these profound teachings, from the tantric teachings, and to be brought up in that way. So present whatever material offerings you can. To be brought up in that way, meaning to be raised in a traditional Tibetan culture where we are taught by our parents to make mandala offerings to teachers and so on. Considering that the practice of making mandala offerings is actually taught by the Buddhas in the tantras. For the sake of all sentient beings, and in order to request the teachings, fill space with all kinds of offerings. With regard to everyone in the assembly, do not feel attachment, aversion, or jealousy. So, if you sit in the Dharma assembly receiving teachings, but you're filled with the emotions, then you're like a pot filled with poison. This will come to, this floor of the pot filled with poison will come to in the following days. But it's no use. You will not benefit from the teachings if you are filled with emotions, anger and jealousy and so on towards your Dharma siblings. So rid yourself of such afflictions. Likewise, don't indulge in idle chatter, in gossip and chatter, and don't say unpleasant things about them, about your Dharma siblings. Idle chatter, well, this also been called stories and so on. It also refers to stories and so on. And different teachers say different things about stories. Like Ngondro Rinpoche, he wasn't so keen on like the stories of Lingesa. And stories, he wasn't so keen on those stories, but Khenpo Chökyi Rinpoche, on the other hand, loved those stories and thought they were wonderful. So Yuko Chapcha was a recent master, an incredible Dzogchen master. Train yourself rather in having only pure perception. In short, adopt the right qualities described in the precious sutras and tantras, and without separating from precious bodhicitta, sit in the teacher's presence, listening to the teaching in the proper manner. So likewise, if you're the master giving the teaching, well, you too need to conduct yourself purely and correctly. So dressed correctly in clean clothes, conducting yourself correctly without pride and contempt. Conduct yourself in such a way that you inspire others. Without pride, desire to be famous. If you have that thought, that wish, then there's no way you can be a lama. So you should be free of pride and also free of contempt for others, looking down on others, criticizing them, denigrating them and so on. Free of the desire to be famous or special, and thinking about how you can impress others. Free of attachment to offerings, respect, paying attention to who's giving me more offerings, who's paying me greater respect. Teacher should be free of all these afflicted mindsets. They should maintain bodhicitta, solely thinking of the benefit of sentient beings. Thinking, I'll acquire the eye of Dharma for all sentient beings. The eye of Dharma, or the vision of Dharma, this is the best eye or eyesight possible. There are different 5 types of eyesight, so to speak. Physical eyesight, divine eyesight, and so on. One of them is the Dharma eyesight. This is the supreme of all. These details are taught in the Prajnaparamita scriptures and so on. The eyesight of Dharma means vision, having seen the Dharmadhatu, the nature of reality itself, undefiled, pure eyesight. So for the benefit of all sentient beings, I shall acquire this eyesight of Dharma. I shall light the lamp of primal wisdom. I'll do everything I can to ensure Buddha's teachings remain for a long time. Visualize yourself as the universally good late-born diamond bearer. Vajradhara with his consort, Guru Rinpoche and Mandarava, or Guru Rinpoche and Yeshe Tsogyal and so on, surrounded by tens of millions of... So dissolving those deities into yourself so that you become inseparable with them. Like at the beginning of the teachings, we make the praise to Manjushri, and at the end they dissolve them inseparably into oneself. So in this way, the teacher visualizes themselves as the deity. Seated respectfully in front of them, they visualize millions of gods, sages, and other beings, and so on. They consider their speech as the sound of Dharma that dispels the darkness of the ignorance of all sentient beings, and so on. Avoid being sleepy, dull, or distracted, chatting meaninglessly, hinting at people's faults, and so on. So avoid chatting meaninglessly. All of us, those of you receiving the teachings, should listen one-pointedly without chatting and talking. I can't actually hear everyone because the hall is so big, but I reckon some of you are talking, so do not talk. Listen attentively, silently. You should also not be chanting mantras or spinning your money wheel and so on, or pretend to act as if you're meditating or doing practice. You should just be listening wholeheartedly without doing anything else. Certainly you shouldn't be getting up and sitting down and moving around. That's disrespectful. Hinting at people's faults, speaking irrelevantly, and other such faults. Also hinting at people's faults, from she's explaining that term in Tibetan. We could also say a kind of sarcasm or subtle mockery of people. Speaking irrelevantly and other such faults. Avoid all of these, because the teacher should teach at a moderate pace, neither too leisurely nor too hurriedly. Not too hurriedly. I have the habit of speaking just really fast, like a galloping horse. So really, it should be like Khyentse Rinpoche would teach. A perfect pace, never too slow, never too fast, always even and consistent, never an unnecessary pause. And he was always like that, whatever he was teaching, shamatha, different types of meditation, the 3 words striking the vital point, Guyagaba Tantra, whatever have you. He was not just an incredible scholar, but I think his teachings came just not from his scholarship, but from his realization. There are very few teachers, though, who can teach like that. So more often than not, the teacher ends up repeating things or missing things out, or spending too long on one point, too little on another, and so on. So I think to consider Moshe, the way he taught, that was a really unique and special quality. Clear, pleasant. Want to teach in a clear and pleasant voice. So clear and also easy to understand and also pleasant. Chant master should also chant in this way, a way that is clear and also pleasant. The chant masters help so much, right, leading hundreds and thousands of people in chanting. But if they don't do a good job, if they recite incorrectly or not clearly, then it's a problem, right? So loudspeakers these days can be really helpful. They help, transmit the chant master's voice far and wide. So if they're doing a good job, then that's really great. But if they make mistakes and so on, then it's also embarrassing because their mistakes are broadcast. The same goes with Lama's teachings with the loudspeaker. So it says one should teach for a suitable length of time. So here we have sessions an hour and a half long. That's a suitable length of time, without getting angry. So not getting angry and aggressive and giving really harsh scoldings, so that those listening to the teaching do not become weary. So Khenpo Daso Rinpoche would teach really wonderfully, clearly and pleasantly, with lots of stories, so that people wouldn't get dull or sleepy. So this was about the way the teacher should teach, and also the way that the students should listen to the teachings. This has been explained really clearly and precisely here. In this manner, you should begin with the following instruction, requesting the disciples to arouse bodhicitta. This always needs to come at the start. So we'll go into this more, bodhicitta, when we arrive at that section of the Ngondro commentary. Giving rise to bodhicitta, recollecting the kindness of mother sentient beings. Of course, one's parents in this life have shown one's great kindness, but all other sentient beings have always been one's kindness. So there's this sevenfold cause and effect instruction on giving rise to bodhicitta, which starts with acknowledging that all sentient beings have been one's parents in the past. The importance of our parents, the kindness and importance of our parents just cannot be stated enough. So these days, though, a lot of people fail to acknowledge the kindness of their parents. They don't look after them, they don't honor them, they don't take care and show them affection. And if you're like that, if you don't acknowledge the kindness of your parents and show them love and affection, then how can you talk about having bodhicitta? How can you talk about practicing the Dharma? So think, arouse bodhicitta thinking, all sentient beings have been our mothers, to draw them out of cyclic existence, the great ocean of suffering, and set them in the precious state of unsurpassed enlightenment. I will properly receive the nectar of the sublime Dharma and train correctly on the stages of the path. So to that end, I will properly receive the sublime Dharma, these teachings on the Ngondro, and train correctly in these stages of the path, meaning the 4 mind changings, refuge, bodhicitta, and so on, all the way up to Guru Yoga, in order to establish beings in enlightenment. So in that way, thinking in that way gives rise to bodhicitta. So at the outset, those listening to the teachings and also the one giving the teachings need to give rise to bodhicitta and set their motivation in this way. So we have the conduct of our mind, so to speak, and then the conduct. So we have motivation, our inner motivation, and our external conduct. So that the motivation of bodhicitta covers our motivation, our mindset, and then as for our physical conduct, as it says, sit on a very low seat, cultivate the virtue of self-control, look with joyful eyes, and so on. So that is how we need to listen to the teachings. Sit on a low seat, meaning sit lower than the teacher. So here everyone is lower than the teacher. Really, you should be sitting on the floor. So here everyone is sitting low, and that's good, so we're all in accord with the Dharma here. Cultivate the virtue of self-control. So self-control in terms of the mind, not falling prey to anger and other emotions. Look with joyful eyes, look up at the teacher with joyful, attentive eyes, not with a frown or the kind of look of a thief or a robber. When you, like in different states of mind, you're trying to steal from someone or deceive someone, or you're angry, or you're filled with desire, your eyes change, right? Your eyes actually reveal your eyes reveal your emotions. So in the words of the Buddha, in the sutras, there's a story about this. Stories about this, and Buddha mentions different types of gaze, different like expressions of the eyes. So you need to look at the teacher with joyful eyes, not frowning or with doubt or aggression or staring. And drink the words like nectar. There's a Ladak Tugu at the monastery who I once said to him, "Why are you looking at me like that in such a strange, why are you looking in such a like aggressive way at me?" And he said, "I'm not looking at you in an aggressive way, Rinpoche. My eyes are just like that." It was very funny. Some people do just naturally have like a strange gaze. Anyway, that was just a joke, that anecdote with Ladak Tugu. The pure and unstained mind listen like a patient to the doctor. So patients should listen to their doctor's advice, like I have diabetes and my doctor tells me you need to avoid these foods, you need to eat like this, you need to exercise, and I really listen. I do exactly what the doctor tells me. You need to do what the doctor tells you, or how can you expect to recover and maintain your health, right? So I really listened to my doctor, and recently when I went for a checkup, he told me that my health has improved and things are going really well. So that's the virtue of following his instructions, right? So some people say, "Oh, it's not helping, but the doctor's, medicine isn't helping." But if you don't actually follow doctor's advice, how can you expect the medicine to help you? So when you receive teachings, you should receive them in this manner, in a gentle, respectful manner, without disturbing the teacher in any way. It said you should receive teachings like a bee drinking nectar from a flower. A bee goes into a flower, drinks the nectar, and then leaves the flower unharmed, right? So you shouldn't receive teachings from a teacher as if you're stealing from them or taking something from them, There's no use in that. So like a patient, listen to the teachings like a patient listening to their doctor, make offerings, and in that way listen to the Dharma. So now we've run a little over time. But accordingly, you should listen properly, free of the 3 defects of the pot and the 6 stains. The 3 defects of the pot. The 3 defects of the pot are to be an upside-down pot, a pot with a leaky bottom, and a pot containing poison. So Rinpoche has read through the first few paragraphs of this section. So actually we've pretty much covered these points already. When receiving the teachings, if you listen with an emotional mind, then you're like a pot containing poison. If you listen to the teachings but don't pay attention, you won't retain them. You'll be like a pot with a leaky bottom and so on. As Buddha said, listen properly and well, and remember, then I will teach you. Khenpo Daza Rinpoche would recite this line all the time when teaching, so much so that we naturally came to know it off by heart. Listen properly, listen well, and remember, retain the teachings, and then I will teach you. So in this line, avoiding the 3 faults and 6 stains, they're all covered. So, or in other words, listen properly without afflictive emotions, listen well without the mouth turned upside down, remember without the bottom leaking. Then we come to the 6 stains. So the 6 stains are to listen with pride, thinking, oh, I'm more learned than this Lama. With lack of devotion, without interest. So a lot of people have come here from very far, from Kalimpong, Bhutan, India, and so on. This shows that you have interest, right? Even those who live nearby, they've still made the effort to come here, so that shows that they have interest. While distracted outwardly, so this means getting distracted, letting your eyes, ears, and so on get distracted to what's happening outside. Introverted, so getting sleepy and dull, falling asleep, or getting so drowsy that you just let out a fart without even noticing, or your nose starts dripping and you don't notice, or feeling discouraged, so feeling kind of irritated and thinking, I wish the teaching would just finish, why won't the session finish, I wish it was over, it's taking so long. So, and to get to go through them again, pride means being proud about your ancestry or so on, thinking, oh, I'm more learned than this teacher. Listening without respect and devotion. Listening without interest. So some people think, oh, well, teaching has been given in such a location, but it's too far. It's far too far for me. I can't go there. But then there are some people here who've come from really far away, like from the US, Australia, and other places. That shows your interest, the interest that you have in the teachings, and all of your effort, and also the expenses, your cost of your flight, your travel, your accommodation, and so on. None of that will go to waste. with all of the money you're spending on travel and so on, you're accumulating merit because you're traveling for the sake of the teachings, right? So that's a really wonderful act, really great effort you're putting in. So it's wonderful to put in so much effort to receive the teachings. Like in the scriptures it said, I will pursue the teachings with such diligence that I'm willing to even walk through fire or walk across blades. So it's wonderful to embrace some hardship, embrace hardship and austerities for the sake of the Dhamma, whether it be in terms of food or clothing, reputation, status, whatever it is. If you're sitting down and during the teachings your knees start to hurt or your back hurts, we'll just endure that pain, endure that discomfort for the duration of the session, and you'll accumulate a lot of merit, a lot of benefit from that. So reading through the next few lines of text which go over the 6 stains again. You should consider the teacher proclaiming the Dhamma as a priceless treasure. So it's difficult to encounter a really, truly priceless qualified teacher these days. But when you do, like when I met Khenpo Dasa Rinpoche, so in the past, when I was studying with my teachers, Khenpo Dasa Rinpoche and Khenpo Chukyi Rinpoche, they were such precious, priceless teachers for me, like wish-fulfilling jewels, that even though there were many other extraordinary teachers around in the nearby area, like Khenpo Chime Punso Rinpoche and so on, I couldn't bring myself to part from my teachers, Khenpo Dasa Rinpoche and Khenpo Chukyi Rinpoche, at all. So in a sense, I lost the chance to receive teachings from other great teachers. So reading through the quotation from the sutra requested by Subahu, consider that those who listen and reflect will achieve their aims. So bring all of these points to mind. So again, I'm going through these points and going through them in detail, not for the sake of the scholars here, but for the sake of the majority, the lay students here. As it's taught in the words of my perfect teacher, one should regard the teacher as a physician, oneself as a sick person, the teachings as medicine, and applying the teachings as taking the medicine. So it's the same, similar to that fourfold perception. We're being taught here to consider the teacher as a priceless jewel and so on. So with correct attitude and perfect mindfulness, meditate as follows. This means that we need to bring to mind the 5 perfections. The 5 perfections that Pema Dobjin described so elaborately during the mandala offering. The perfect place, a Buddha realm, endowed with boundless good qualities. Actually, in any case, this place wherein this location is no ordinary place. It's the great stupa of awakening, Jarong Kashor Chudin, and a very blessed place. This entire valley is a blessed place. So there's an anecdote that one student asked a teacher, maybe it was Chadra Rinpoche, where should I stay on retreat in Bodh, Nagi Gompa, in Swayambhu, up in Yangleshu, where should I stay? And the teacher, I think it was Chadra Rinpoche, replied, it doesn't make any difference. This whole valley, whole Kathmandu valley is a blessed place. Wherever you stay, it will be beneficial. So we really are in a very sacred place here. Imagine that perceive the place as pure as a Buddha field, and conceive the building you're in as not an ordinary being, but a palace of great liberation. So we're reading through these lines on page 5 if you have the English translation. In the center is a jeweled throne, and so on, upon which is seated the teacher, who embodies the compassion activities of all the Buddhas of the 3 times. Hearing the teacher's name alone brings liberation from cyclic existence in lower realms. So there Rinpoche was just reading through the commentary itself. So in this way, visualize the teacher in a palace, in a pure realm. My late father, when he heard if he heard just the name of his Guru Kyabje Juju Rinpoche, he would join his palms together and just be overcome. He would shed tears just by hearing the name of his teacher. That kind of faith and pure perception is probably quite rare. So visualize the teacher as the universally good late-born diamond bearer, namely Guru Rinpoche in union with consort, and from his mouth the words of the teaching streaming forth in the form of rays of light with syllables of the vowels and consonants. Visualize all of the men, all of the male students in the form of red Manjushri, and all of the female students in the form of Goddess Tara, green in color. The ears of both male and female listeners are 16-petaled blue utpalas, through which the words of the teaching enter, dissolving into the lotuses of their hearts and dispelling the darkness of ignorance. Consider that the lotus of knowledge blooms and the meaning of the teachings is clearly understood and perfectly retained through the power of unforgetting memory. So now we're dedicating the merit.